Okay, this is the second webinar for the student teaching. I'm going to go over the first couple of weeks and we'll talk about some different strategies and things that you folks will be able to use in the classroom. If you need to talk, you can unmute yourself or you can use the chat box. Okay, I might go over a few things that we did last week, but that'll only be quick. In the first week, these are your two lesson plan formats. One is for literacy and one is for math. If you're doing the EdTPA, your math is what's called a re-engagement lesson. In other words, it's an RTI like we talked about when I was going over the Fisher webinar. You identified students had a difficulty in a specific area and you're going to reteach it in a different area. So that's what your math TPA is going to focus on. But these, if you're doing a math lesson for your observation, you use this lesson plan. If you're doing any other one, you use this template. For the first week, right in this area, you submit your diversity report, which goes over the population of the students in your classroom, your special ed students, your second language students, your students who are at risk, male, female, and ethnicity. For those of you in Israel, a lot of them will have the same ethnicity. That shouldn't be an issue for you. Here you're going to talk about, and again, you can pull these from your educational psychology course that you took way back when, like using Bloom or something like that, in terms of what is the foundation for doing your lessons. Okay, you can also use things like the gradual release framework that we talked about it as well, and focus on how you're going to use them as a basis for your instruction. Okay, here, this is a reflection on the Fisher and Fry FIT teaching framework, summarize their foundation of learning, reflect on how this relates to you, focus on two of the areas, and make sure you cite the webinar to support your reflection. You probably will find this easier in the discussion board. So go in through the discussion board. That's where you're going to find it a lot easier. Okay, that would be oh, actually, no, that's right. That's an assignment there. That's not a discussion board. My apologies. So you're just going to do that. Any questions on the first week? Okay, we're going to move to the second week. Now, we talked about a lot of stuff during the webinar with the Doug Fisher and stuff like that. The first thing I want to look at is show you the task assignment. Remind me guys, did I show you all the tasks? Gavi, Nahama, did I show you guys?
I don't think you showed us specific tasks.
Okay, well, I'm going to show you that now. We'll go over all that. These are a very important part of your course grade, and it also ties in very nicely to the EdTPA. That's the nice thing about it. So for task 1, and again, I'm looking at the second week, you're going to focus on your classroom and the school and your instructional strategy. So you want to talk about your community, the district, and the school factors, and a lot of the things that you'll do with your diversity report will come into there, and with your classroom factor especially, and student characteristics. Okay, that is basically how this will help you, knowing these factors, and influence how you plan and implement your intervention and instruction. Okay, I will show you something else in a minute that goes along with that. I'm just going to go over all the tasks so you have an idea how this fits in. Task 2, you're going to focus on the learning goals and your overall goal for a unit that you're going to design, and you can use that for your EdTPA as well. And you're going to provide justification for this. You can use, as I said, your prior educational research thing, course information that you put in, gradual release, all of those type of things, and how you're going to align that with your standards. And what you want is your overall goals. Task 3 is your assessment plan. You're not going to be doing this stuff for a while, so you're going to design an assessment plan. This is your formative and summative assessments. You're going to have to do a pre and post assessment, and we'll talk about this at length. You're going to have your formative assessments. We're going to talk about these a lot. You're going to also make a chart using them, and you're going to analyze your student performance. Okay, I'm just giving you an overview here. We'll go over these in detail. Okay, task 4. This is your academic calendar, how you're going to put that unit into use. You're going to use 4 lessons, focusing on teaching that. Okay, you need all the information, including how your activities stem from your pre-assessments and stuff like that, and how you'll talk about how you're going to incorporate those assessments as well, even though you mentioned it prior. Task 5, you're now going to analyze the student results. Whole class, you're going to have 2 students of completely different abilities and analyze their results as well. And you have to provide student samples. And task 6 is your reflection on the unit, on the problems you had, the use of the instructional strategies, your effectiveness, what you could do to improve your instruction, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm going to go over these at length as we go through the course, but you should have an overview of that before we get going. Let me go back to the course. So you do not have to submit task 1. Okay, you just want to get started on it. Okay, it says complete it, but it's not due this second week. But part of what you're doing is you're going to work with your students. Hopefully you're going to do this with them individually. If you have younger students, you can do it with your cooperating teacher. You can use this as a basis for designing your instruction. You can also do this as a basis for engaging students who may have difficulty in the classroom. So let me show you what they look like. You can fill these out with the students. If you're younger, you can fill them out with the cooperating teacher. However you see fit. You can modify this as you need if you have younger students. So this is a multiple intelligence log. So you want to see where your students' strengths are. Okay, again, you may fill this out with the students. You may fill it out with the students and the cooperating teacher, or you may use the cooperating teacher solely to do that. So you will be able to then design instruction based on it. So if you know you have a lot of students who are musical, rhythmical, you want to include activities that are that. If you know that there are a lot of interpersonal behaviors, you want to talk about that when designing instruction. If there's bodily kinesthetic, you want to include a lot of movement, et cetera, et cetera. Mathematical, you may want to include that. Now the interest survey. This you'll do as much as you can. And again, you may not be able to answer all of these with your students because I know there are limitations in terms of watching TV and stuff like that. Just get the best that you can from them, okay, in terms of if they have TV characters they know or famous people they know, pets, animals, what they would like to be, where they've traveled, okay, their favorite subject, a book, if they can't read, a book that was read to them that they enjoyed, what their sports are, their hobbies, etc. this is a great foundation for when you're doing your EdTPA. So if you're doing your EdTPA later in your second placement, you'll want to do this again. This will really impress the people who are doing your EdTPA if you're using this as a basis for designing instruction.
We're going to hand these in with our EdTPA, these type of surveys that you give
No,
us?
you're going to submit this right here.
I understand, but with the EdTPA, like you want us,
You can cite it, and you can include it also. You say, okay, I designed this lesson based on, you don't even have to include them. You could say the students took a multiple intelligence survey. I found that 8 of the students were very musical, so I designed the lesson incorporating music with the lesson and stuff like that.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Behavioral strategies in the classroom. Okay. So this goes along with scale for establishing classroom routines. Okay. I'm going to show you this. This is a discussion thread. Okay. So you're going to find this in the discussion board. Okay. And this is where it is. Focus on the classroom atmosphere established by your classroom teacher. Okay, just how does this relate to your strategies for ed psychology? This goes along with the Carrots book. Okay, you're going to rate your cooperating teacher using the scale. Okay, and where you fall on the scale and what strategies you plan on using. So I will show you what that looks like. Okay, this is the book that you again need to purchase. I did put this chapter in there for you in case you don't have it. You're going to analyze your teacher. Okay, using these teacher types. Okay, and going along with that, I will show you other stuff that goes along with that. Okay, but as you could see, the scale is right there, and you have all of this there for you. Okay, but let me talk to you guys a little bit about, I'm going to move to week 3 a little bit. That was the classroom routines. I'm sorry that I showed you for week 3. Let me go back to week 2, guys. That's behavioral strategies in the classroom. So you want to use this chart. Rate the teacher. I showed you that. That's what you're going to do there. And behavioral strategies in the classroom and the discussion board. Right, that's what I showed you. Okay, good. Now, in terms of
Rating our cooperating teacher?
yes, exactly.
Where do we send that in?
Yeah, rating your cooperating teacher.
Are we submitting these forms by the week, or is it all building up towards our final assignment?
You submit it by the week, okay? And this was just helping you in terms of you're rating your teacher in terms of strategies that the teacher is using after you read the chapter and how you feel you fit in terms of that as well. Okay? Now I'm going to show you, yeah, go ahead. Any questions?
No, I understand now. Thank you.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to look at with you tonight as well was the way that different teachers gain using student management strategies to gain attention in the classroom. I think this is very important to see this in the beginning, and you can talk about that as well when you're analyzing your teacher. So I'm going to show you some intention getting strategies, and you're going to decide what you want to use. And you can use completely different ones. The first one I'm going to show you is done by a student teacher that I had working in a very difficult school in Brooklyn, New York. Okay, and she did a great job establishing this is one of the ways that she gains student attention.
I said you got to read. Say what you gotta read. Say what I got my eyes on the prize and I think you have to read. I want to go inside so I read. You gotta read. Say what you gotta read. Say what you gotta read. Because
And you got to realize again that this is a very low performing school. Great way to get the lesson going, getting the kids all focused. Let me show you ones that are out there. Okay. All different
I
teachers.
like to get their attention silently. So rather than saying, you know, if you can hear me, clap once or something like that. So one of the things I do is I put my hand up. Thank you, Justin, Diana. Okay. Anybody in the room who sees my hand puts their hand up, and so on and so forth. So anybody who sees another hand up, they all put their hands up. It's a silent way of getting their attention. All the kids don't have to be facing me in order for it to happen. So they're always facing each other when they're working in small groups. And it also gives them a second or two to kind of finish that last thought, whatever they're talking about or working on. Okay, so it's not an immediately, you know, you must be silent now. So it gives them a second to bring their attention back to the whole class. Okay.
And you'll see your cooperating teacher using different strategies, and I'll show you some other ones. But you pick the ones that you think work best for you.
Many attention-getting signals. A lot of the times I'll do a dun, 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 and then they freeze and put their hands on top of their head. In 4, I make that sound, they freeze, 3, and they know the next thing they're supposed to do is put materials away. 2, another attention getter. All right, when we need it to be quiet or we need to get our self-control back, we'll sing a little song to remind us where our hands go. Open, shut them, give a little. Open, shut them, put them in your laugh-a-dee laugh. Because we're also practicing rhyming, so the more you can get, the better. All right, you ready? I also ring bells sometimes to get their attention. Again, everything goes on their head, they freeze, and they know the next step is to put their materials away. We are sitting up straight, hands in their lap. If you use the same signal all the time, they get kind of bored with it. So I think just to spice it up and keep it going, I like to change it. And they seem to have fun with it too. Give me a high five if you're ready.
Show you one more. And again, you got to use the ones that are appropriate for your age and the students that you have. It is good to switch them up and make them different for the students. And if you could do things that once you know what they're interested in and pull that in, that really works.
I'm a musical teacher, and I love to incorporate music into everything that I do. So the purpose of the drum is really just to get the students' attention without using my voice.
all right, you guys. So let's actually take the time now to share a few things that we learned.
And then the students know that it's time to stop what they're doing and listen for direction, or stop what they're doing and transition to the next phase of the activity or lesson. Because then I'm not, shushing people, or I'm not, getting really frustrated because they haven't stopped working. It's a way for me to engage the the student in a fun way when it's time to make the transition.
So I'm saying, you pick what you think works for your students, you switch them up. These are all great ideas. The more you can include things where students actually include a little bit of movement or they have to do something, that makes it more interactive, and then you know that they're focusing. Okay, just things to do, think about to gain student attention. Anybody got any comments or questions on these guys? All right, let me show you a few other things. Okay, I'm going to show you different ways that some teachers teach and use movement and also have students engaged in their activities and organizing the learning environment. These are all good basic foundations for what you need.
Extra 1, 11 is a group of 10 and 1. Extra 1, 12 is a group of 10 and 2. Extra 1 is a group of 10 and 3. Extra 1, 14 is a group of 10 and 4. Extra 1, 15 is a group of 10 and 5. Extra 1. 16 is a group of 10, 10, extra 1. 17 is a group of 10 and 7, extra 1. 18 is a group of 10 and 8, extra 1. Show me your time. 19 is a group of 10 and 9, extra 1.
Kids are very musical. Kids need movement, especially your younger kids that are sitting there all day. You get them up and moving during your learning activities. Amazing. Great activity here for math and getting that incorporated in the learning environment. Let me show you the next one.
Scientists, we need water to test. Scientists, hold on. Now, before I bring you water.
Okay, the first thing that I see here, and the first thing that you guys see here, what strikes you, and you're dealing here with, I believe this is a second grade classroom. Okay, what do you see here that really strikes you about the language that this teacher is using?
She's calling them scientists.
Yeah, that's great. Kids feel like, wow, I'm an expert. I'm a scientist. Anytime you can do stuff like that, it really makes the kids feel important and valued.
And they want to live up to it also.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They want to live up to the name also.
Yeah. Makes them feel, wow, I'm a scientist. Wow, cool. But watch how she organizes the environment, especially when you're doing something like this. Doing hands-on activities like this, and if you don't set it up the right way, are recipes for disaster in the classroom.
Now, before I bring you water. Before I bring you water. Don't touch the clay yet, just look at it. Scientist, hands in your lap. Scientist, I need you to look at this clay, and I need you to think. Make a hypothesis. Remember, you're wondering, you're thinking about your prediction, if it's going to sink or float, and you're going to think how you're going to make it happen.
Look at again, Doug Fisher was talking about using academic language. Look at all the great academic language she's using, and she's going to have the kids using that back to her.
So think in your mind, what is my hypothesis? Tell your science partner at your desk, what's your hypothesis about the clay?
Look at the gradual release framework here. She's now making this collaborative.
What's your hypothesis? Go over here.
what's your hypothesis going to be about this play when I bring the water?
My hypothesis is I think it will float
When?
I put it in the water.
Excellent. Now tell Soraya, because you have to be careful.
My
So I'm noticing that this
hypothesis
is covering. So that really makes it
when I put the clay in the water, I think it was safe. My hypothesis is it's on the sea. Water.
So let's turn that into a hypothesis.
Scientists, stop, look, and listen. I know you're excited to.
And that's her little attention-getting thing. Scientists stop, look, and listen, and they all go, okay.
To touch your claim, play the clay, but put it down. I'm going to bring the water to your table. You told your scientists their hypothesis. Brittany, I want you to share your hypothesis with us.
Well, there's
Oh,
my
scientists are being great listeners.
My hypothesis is I think the clay will sink when I put it in the water.
Are you ready to test her hypothesis?
Yes.
All right. She thinks it's going to float. I heard a couple of other hypotheses that they think it's going to sink.
One thing that she did in a prior video based on this is she modeled how to use the water, how to put things in the water, how to handle the clay and the materials and stuff like that. You put stuff out like this and students don't have guidance, that clay could be flying, it could be flung into the water could be spilled, and you have a recipe for disaster. So the gradual release framework goes even into the process.
Wait till I bring you the water, and then you may take your clay one friend at a time. Put your clay inside the water.
I was like, oh man, I was wrong. But it did right automatically. It was sick. I was right. I guess I was wrong.
And remember when Doug Fisher was talking about establishing a classroom atmosphere where students are not afraid to take risks? Are these kids afraid to take risks? No, they had a hypothesis and they're happy with it, whether it was right or wrong.
Scientists, take your clay out and set it on the paper towel. And I'm going to bring you another piece of clay.
And let me show you one more.
Scientists, take a look over here. I did turn into a ball. They are not big or small. I want you to take both pieces. I want you to hold it in your hand. Like this. Match me. What do you notice about the weight? Do you think they're the same?
Yeah.
I need a scientist to come out and check. I brought our scale, so we're going to check. Rory, can you bring both of your pieces over and put them into the scale? What do you notice?
That was heavier.
Just a tiny bit heavier, but pretty much they're the same.
Okay, so just going through that whole process there. Hang on a second. All right, and again, just talking about using academic language, using the gradual release framework in terms of even the processes. Okay, just a few things that you guys should be familiar with. Okay, let me go back to the course. Okay, so you make sure you submit all that type of stuff. Let's go to week 3. And again, we're going to go over a lot of stuff here. This is the scale for establishing routines. And again, the videos went along with that a bit. One of the real key things that we're going to be looking at when you do your lessons is what pre-learning strategies are you going to be using. Okay, anybody who had courses with me prior knows that we spend a lot of time on that. But I will go over some. It never hurts if you've been through it to see some of these also. You pick the ones that you think work for you. You pick the ones that you think work best for your students. The first 2 to 5 minutes of a lesson often will dictate the success of that lesson. What you're trying to do is you're trying to engage the students and you're trying to build background knowledge. So you're going to talk about that here. But let me show you some different examples. Okay? And again, some of you may have limitations in terms of using technology and stuff like that. Use what you think works for and you're able to use. This goes along with a curriculum that I designed for all the 3rd grade classrooms in the Baltimore City District. I trained the teachers on using it, and they incorporated it in the classroom. And we talked with great length why the first activity must be so engaging. The students were focusing on reading. It was a STEM project. They had a lot of money for this, so the students built their own Lego roller coaster. They had Lego books that focus on roller coasters, fiction and nonfiction. They created products, and we had about 4 major units on it. But this was the first activity that we did, and I'll show you what it looked like. Okay, let me pull it up. It was amazing how this engaged the students. Okay. Okay, so this is quite a project that I developed for them. Okay. And this is what I did. We set up the initial hill as the highest. The speed was the highest. I showed this to the teachers and we did it with them, and then they did it in the classroom. And when they were done with this, they were able to then use this, and they had the setup in their technology center. The mass is highest, the friction is lowest, and the gravity was highest. So let me show you what that looked like. Okay, so the hill is high. Okay, the speed was high. The mass was high. And as we were doing this, and again, you want to build that background knowledge. So we're going to be talking about what is speed. This is a 3rd grade. What is mass? And examples of it. What is gravity? Gravity was high and friction was low. So look how we're engaging the students and we're building their background knowledge. They're going to know a lot of the important concepts and terms even before they get involved in the whole unit. So I'll ask you guys, with the speed high, the mass high, the gravity high, and the friction low, with a high hill, what's your prediction? And we use academic language to this roller coaster. So I'm asking you guys now.
Gonna go very fast.
It's going to go very fast. Anybody else?
Same prediction.
Same prediction. Okay, let's take a look. I'm sorry, guys, you're dead. So what we did then is we modified the controls. Okay, of course, we made the gravity very low. We talked about what it was. We put in a lot of friction. We made the hill a lot lower. Okay, and we asked them for the speeds a lot slower, and we asked them for what their prediction is then. What's your prediction then? And we made the mass a lot lower. What's going to happen with the roller coaster now? Not much speed, not much mass. Gravity is very low and a lot of friction.
It's gonna go slow.
Going to go slow. Let's see.
It might not go up the next hill.
Yeah, it's barely moving, guys. All right. So we went through all that, and then we were able to discuss all that with them. And you could see where an activity like this is building that background knowledge, and they're getting great engagement with it. And when we put this in the centers, they loved it. They just went and loved to do that. Now, if you're allowed to use videos, this is one that one of my student teachers in a prior course developed. I thought this was amazing. Okay, this was a unit on the president. It was also focusing on separation of powers. This was for 5th grade. And if you use a video, you want to use it as an interactive teaching tool. So I will do it as if I was the teacher here. And let me tell you something, kids at all ages love cartoons.
Make it a habit. I've got a lot of what it takes to change the law. I get the money. Yes, the money. But it's in what's up, Duck? What's up, Edmund? I'll tell you what's up. When I'm president, I'm going to pass a law that'll outlaw rabbits. That's my poor unfortunate.
And the teacher stopped it here and asked the student, does the president have the power to pass a law outlawing rabbits? Great introduction to presidential powers, getting into bit into separation of powers.
And soon to be condemned species is what is up. Very ingenious solution to a long smoldering problem. But there's just one slight technicality. The president can't pass laws. The president can't pass laws.
And she stopped it here at this point and said, well, if the president can't pass laws, who does pass laws? And some students actually knew. They were able to say that it was senators and House of Representatives and the legislative branch. But what a great way to introduce all that.
The president can do anything he wants.
And then have focus on a discussion on, can the president do anything he wants? And they got into a great discussion on checks and balances. Look at all the concepts that are being discussed prior to doing the whole unit. And the students are already engaged with it and thinking about separation of powers, checks and balances, who makes laws, et cetera, et cetera. How long is this an activity? You're talking 2 to 5 minutes. Great, great pre-learning activity. You can use video or anything like that. Make it an interactive learning activity. So that's one you can use. Another one that we use is based on what we call the WebWinder. This is the site. You can make it any way, anything you want. There, I will add a few caveats about this. You do have to make sure you save it because sometimes you can lose these, but you can create them and use them with your classroom and just show it on the computer. Again, this is really not something that they really need to use the internet on, so you might be able to use it. So let's say I was designing one on, let's say, a question on a unit on the Holocaust. Who was the Führer of Germany during the Holocaust? And I always tell students, if you're going to do something like this, make it highly engaging, okay, so that you have correct answer or wrong answer, and 2 answers that are highly engaging to the students. So you might put down President Roosevelt, Adolf Hitler. In the United States, they would relate to LeBron James, okay, and maybe somebody like popular in New York, like Aaron Judge, the baseball player. Engages the students, obviously answer is B. Okay, and here's the key, you put in a reference, and this is a great teaching moment. Okay, and you put add to quiz, when you have all these, take these guys and save them into a Word document. So if you lose your quiz, you just put it back in the same spot and you don't lose it. And this is how you make it. Title for the quiz, okay, the Holocaust. Okay, make it look good, guys. Page background color, gold. Font is black. That could be blue. Font color, keep those black. Middle tab color, let's say orange. Okay, color of question, red, so on and so on. And then you go click create quiz, and look how good it is. And here's one of the keys. If you're going to do something like this with the students, and I've done this when I've done staff development in some very high-risk schools, I always tell the students that I'm going to give you a quiz, and this is the first thing I do with the students, and the quiz is going to count as a grade, and they think I'm absolutely crazy. But then I tell them, you know, and the teachers have to agree that the quiz will count as a grade. I tell them, well, here's the good news. You can take the quiz as many times as you want, and if you get the questions wrong, you can take it over again. So you click on next question. If you get it wrong, it tells you the answer, and you can start over. Next question, and you can get it right. Okay, here's one created by a prior student on animals. Okay, where an animal lives is called, well, they all live in apartments, right? And they tell you what the right answer is. You go to next question, which is not one of the 5 animal groups. Again, make it fun for the students. Obviously, it is SpongeBob, but great information. Great, great tool, guys, if you can use it. Here's another one. This is onlinequizcreator.com. Okay, and this is what it looks like. It's very similar. Easy to create. And when you're done, they tell you it and they can take it all over again. Okay. Just giving you different ideas and things you could use and put up. You could do it as a whole class thing. Students are highly engaged. Okay. That's basically the idea on those. Now let me show you one other highly effective pre-learning activity, in case you can't use any of those. One of the ones that has been used very successfully is called an anticipation guide. This is one I created for a study I did with 3rd graders on plants. They did this first, and we use this as and again, look how this ties in so nicely with the EdTPA and your tasks. This is also a formative assessment because this is a prediction. Do they agree or disagree beforehand and after, and then they have to cite evidence afterwards. This is a great one to use for your EdTPA stuff. Okay. Right. And they know in the beginning that they don't have to be right. Let me show you another one. This was created by a prior student as well. Okay, where did I put it? Well, I don't see it, guys, so. I'll find the other stuff I wanted to show you. Okay. All right, I thought I had it up, but you get the idea on that. That's not the one I want. Let me go back to the course. Okay, and the other thing I wanted to show you, and we really don't need too much time, when we talk about the formative assessments that you're going to use for your lessons and for the TPA and for the tasks that I just showed you, here's some samples of some great assessments you could use. And again, if you use these type of things, this is great evidence for your lessons for the TPA. These are great to use. Like I say, one of them you could use is the anticipation guide. But oh, here's the other anticipation guide, guys. Okay. Dealing with a 5th grade unit on the American Revolution. Okay. Here's the writing checklist. So this works really, really well where you have the students, and you're going to focus on, if the students are doing writing in connection with your lesson, you may focus on 1 or 2 specific writing skills that you model and pre-teach with them and go over with all that. And now you want to go around as the students are writing, and this is a checklist. And you can go around as they're writing, and you can use this now for when you have student meetings to evaluate their work, or you can use this as response intervention to design future lessons. Use something like this. They'll love this for the TPA. This is really good for your tasks as well. So you go around, you see, oh, I could see Kyle's having trouble here, and you can write down some stuff and stuff like that. Let me show you one for a different subject. Hang on, let me find it.
That checklist is an assessment?
Formative assessment. Great formative assessment. Here's one for reading. This goes along with Doug Fisher's stuff. This goes along with his visible learning. Okay, as you saw in the video, we was talking about how do you identify students that are having difficulty. Well, this is a great way to do it. As the students are working or you're working with the students, you have this right handy with you, and you can put down the students that are having difficulty with it. Okay, just giving you ideas for different ways to design formative assessments. So some stuff to think about now, so when you're designing your unit and stuff like that. Okay, let me go
How
back.
many formative assessments do you need in the lesson, in that TPA lesson?
Well, what are your goals for the lesson? And then as you're going through it, you decide what you're going to evaluate. Depends on your unit and your lesson.
Okay.
You're having an observation lesson, you have your lesson goals. You want 1, 2, formative assessments. And we're going to do a lot of talking about formative assessments in a later webinar. There's a lot of different ones that you can use. Okay, these are just ideas. These are top ones because you can use these for your EdTPA and for your tasks, and it gives you a lot of valuable information. And you see how this ties in so nicely with the Doug Fisher webinar and talking about the assessments. Okay, so I covered a lot of stuff, guys. Again, I kind of covered through most of the first 3 weeks, but at least it gives you an idea where you're going and why you're doing this and how you're getting there. Okay, do we have any questions? I try to keep these now normally to an hour or less, so this really will be under the hour, guys.
Thank you so much for going through the activities.
Right, and again, these are giving you ideas, you know, how you formulating your classroom, your lessons, your unit, how you're managing the classroom, things that you really need to think about to be able to maintain order in the classroom and have effective learning. All right.
Thank you so much. It was so helpful and clear.
Yeah, okay. I will send out the one for next week. As we know, I do have to rotate them because I have students in the United States who can't attend at 2, so then sometimes I do them at 6, and I rotate them back and forth, but they'll all be recorded and available for you.